The two key comics for me were Rupert Bear because of the image and the Eagle for the stories, and in particular Dan Dare. And I got the idea that I would like to design the future. It was Frank Hampson who designed and drew Dan Dare. Almost every frame there's a design element. He had an industrial design ethos that you can see picked up on little teeny gadgets right through to spaceships and cities. It was an integrated design vision. And that really got to me, and I thought, this is something I really want to do. Dan Dare was unusual in the context of English comics at the time, because there were comics that were essentially comic, funny, Dandy and Beano. And then there were lots of small format comic books that were adventure stories. But what made the Eagle and Dan Dare stand out was that it was fantastic colour, large format, and about the future. I mean, what's not to love about that? I could see the future in his designs way more than I could see it in the design world out there. We lived in a modern block of flats in Hong Kong. And to me, it didn't seem like the future at all. It just seemed like a big extension of the prefab building that was going on in Britain in that post-war era when people had to knock up houses in a real hurry. They looked like appallingly utilitarian and temporary structures. But in Dan Dare, I saw a future that could be aesthetically satisfying. And it inspired me to think, that is what I want to do. I want to design a future that would be brilliant to live in. Frank Hampson would have been a great artist in any field. He chose that storytelling medium. We had a publishing company by accident. I didn't intend to go into publishing, but I couldn't find a publisher to do my book. The Dutch printer said, well, we can publish it, we can print it and publish it, but we don't want to do one book. If you'll set up a publishing company, we'll do it. One of the things that really excited me about the publishing was going and finding the art that inspired me as a child, like Frank Hampson's Dan Dare, and finding out that Frank Hampson was still alive and talking to him and about what he'd like to see of his work. The Eagle comic was largely his invention. The Eagle name, the Eagle logo was his. When we came to issues of copyright, I think the problem for him is the problem for many artists, is that you're so focused on the content, you're paying no attention to the legal infrastructure within which the content takes place. And so although he was the creator and inventor of this comic in many ways, he didn't deal with the business. So he became an employee, which meant that they could argue that as an employee he had no rights. Frank was very upset about how he was treated. The company that owned them at the time was so utterly indifferent to them and all the incredible artwork that they were basically guardians of. It was all in a basement that had been flooded, and a lot of the artwork was still wet, water damaged, and we basically collected it all, sorted it all, and by and large gave it back to them, which was, I think, an error. The deal we did was that we would split the royalties with Frank and the publishers. Basically, they agreed to that, and they were acknowledging a co-ownership of the copyright at that point. So I think we could have gone even further. If I have there's lots of reasons to regret that era, but one of those regrets is that we didn't just close down any argument and got back the rights that Well, this is a story, but in this story, it's not just the characters that are drawn. He's designed a car, a gyroscopic car. He's got electronic equipment, hi-fi, a spaceship. Everything is designed. It's not just that he can draw. He's designing at the same time. The challenge we had is to make it work as a page in a book, so we didn't need the logo every other page. So these were the panels he designed and redrew for us. Remember, they had to do 2 pages a week. Even though there was a team, it was still, it was quite a lot of work just designing it, let alone drawing and painting it. It is several layers because there's 2 for protection, and then there's one which just has the text. I mean, if you look at this just from an architectural point of view, the lifts, which are in clear tubes, and the curving balcony, this became commonplace, but it wasn't in the 50s. It was extremely unusual. Dare was a risk for us because it was hugely relevant to the English-speaking world, but not to the American English-speaking world. They're unknown there. So, we sold it in England, we sold it in Australia and Canada. We sold it in America, but much less than it deserved. The incredible power of the fan base for the comics, the enthusiastic response to it. But there was no thought other than, this is wonderful. But in France, they took it seriously as literature and as art. I guess in England, oh yeah, why not? It was not the first thing in people's mind. This is great literature, this is great art. That wasn't what they were thinking. They were saying, oh my God, I loved this when I was a kid, and I still do. So it had that power, the power that when it sinks in your mind, as a 12-year-old, it never lets go. The 2 most impressive comic artists, in my view, were Frank Hampson and Frank Bellamy. But obviously, Rupert hangs in there.